Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are almost at the end of this amazing KCD. I hope you're having a great time, as we are all having. So this is our session where we're talking about composable platforms. We wrote about it. We wrote an amazing blog some months ago. And then we started wondering, okay, I think we should, talk more about it. So we will do a quick introduction to explain what are composable platforms for us from our perspective, what works and what really doesn't work. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Valentina Rodriguez-Sosa. I'm a principal architect at Red Hat. I work at Red Hat. I work with platforms and everything on top of the platform. But also, I am a big contributor of the CNCF. I'm a project maintainer at Kubeflow. If you haven't heard about Kubeflow, is an amazing composable set of cloud-native tools that allows you to create AI ML applications in Kubernetes. So you can scale it and distribute it. So it's an amazing project. I highly recommend you to look at it. And this is one of the reasons what brings me here today, but also amazing speakers here with me. I've been working with the Tag App Delivery some time ago, also the platform working groups and the cartographers. So here with me, Simon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Simon Forster. I'm a technical architect and I'm based in London. I do platform architecture and engineering work in financial services. And I work within the trading area, particularly within financial services, so HPC, market data, and flow trading, so pretty demanding on occasion. And I'm particularly interested in platform composability because it allows me to really make sure that I provide the right platform capabilities to the developers and delivery teams I support in the business.
Yep. And I'm Colin Lacey. I'm a software tech lead at Cisco, and I'm really interested in platforms because I've used quite a bit as an end user of monolithic platforms and composable platforms. And composable platforms I've seen done well and also seen done very poorly. So I have a lot of opinions about this space, so I'm happy to join this discussion.
Yeah. And with that, we get started. But what really are composable platforms? So we see composable platforms as a platform that provides different user experiences and a broad range of components. But to really fulfill technical needs, but at the end, it's really to support and add value to the business. That's what we all are here, right? We want to increase that competitive advantage. So with that, I want to kind of go deep on that. So when we look into the business and organizations, as Danielle mentioned today in the keynote, organizations are evolving, business and changing, and they need to adapt as the industry changes. And that brings new workloads, for example, AI workloads, right? So I need to be able to have a platform that allows me to bring different components, but also to choose different components.
So when you're doing that, right, quick question here. When you're doing that, do you have like a framework? Do you base it around your personas of your end users and your stakeholders?
Yeah, so that is a great question because when we think on the platform and the business value, we need to connect with all the personas. And we need to understand who are the personas that interacts with the platform directly and indirectly. So if we start thinking on an organization that provides maybe applications or services to end users and customers, they perceive this composability through the experience that they get through those applications and services. So imagine the performance that they can experience, the user experience, the security that allows them to work with those products. But also when looking into the ones who interact directly, such as operations, for example, they look into how to bring those security aspect into the different layers. So each persona will have a different perspective of what composability means. And when I have my platform, it doesn't mean I need to build the platform from scratch. It means I have this platform and I can put different components on top of it. So when I am operations, I want to ensure all those composabilities are able to interact and I can bring the security across the different layers. But also if I'm working, for example, with cloud services, how I can expose all those services through the platform itself. as platform engineers, I may be focused in bringing like security. So how I can bring a trusted supply software chain within the different artifacts that are part of my whole software development lifecycle. For developers, it's really asking like how my application will fit in this big picture of the platform, how I can bring the different archetypes and runtimes, how would be my experience without disrupting my daily work and activities. But also when looking into AI, I want to focus on AI as well, is how for data scientists, I can bring that model and serve that model that is on my local environment into a platform with scalability, performance, and efficiency, but taking into consideration latency. And as an AI engineer, of course, that we hear a lot about agentic AI, is how we can bring standardized tools for AI engineers to start bringing those workloads that can connect to the models that are already served on the platform. And with that, I want to ask Simon. So we talk about composability. Now we want to know more about it, how it works, what is your opinion, and how it can affect business.
So business needs have a direct effect, or platform composability directly affects that. So often a lot of the business requirements that I face tend to be around the very fast shipping of features, okay, and also maybe around availability, okay. Now, that differs quite dramatically from the business requirements within other parts of a large organization. I think a really important part is that if your organization is monolithic, then you can have a monolithic platform, right? But the moment that we have a massive divergence between one group within a business, okay, around its business requirements, then we have a key dependency on being able to bring in different capabilities and compose that platform differently. Yeah.
That's great. And then, Colin, what do you think about when we have these different stakeholders? How you prioritize all the different aspects of the platform?
Yeah, so each organization is going to prioritize differently depending on which development teams they're supporting. But I think the most important thing is that when a platform team sets a roadmap, especially when they're going to bring on new components, right, bring components online, or they're going to enhance components with things like compliance requirements, right? That roadmap needs to be set in stone, and you have to stick to it. So if a platform team says, okay, we're going to have this compliance framework in place in 6 months, and then it doesn't happen for 3 years, right? That's going to leave me, the developer, who's dependent on that, hanging probably with a temporary solution that was not meant to last more than 6 months, right? I'm going to carry that for as long as I have to until someone else can provide me with something better. So that's a really big aspect of it. And then when you're creating that roadmap, right, also keep in mind that things are going to pop up, right? One of the struggles that I see platform engineers go through when they're supporting application teams is there's a balance between new features and bug fixes, or new features, bug fixes, and that high priority, ultra political team you have to onboard, right? A VP comes along, we have to support this team now. Everything else has to get dropped. So don't over allocate your time to maintaining your roadmap. Always expect, as a platform team, new things are going to pop up, and so 60% of your time to new features. That whatever fits your team best. Right? Just make sure you're leaving bandwidth for new things that are going to pop up.
So, Colin, I mean, how do you avoid siloed functionality in a large-scale composable platform?
Yeah, I've worked with platforms where, each component was run by a different team and had a different reporting structure, and therefore they were not required to work together, right? And that became a real struggle for the development teams that use them. So every developer's favorite 3 things, right? Maintaining your documentation, maintaining your interfaces, and rigorous testing. Those are the ways you make sure that your components work together. Because your end users, your developers, right? If it's composable, they're going to use those pieces together, maybe in ways that the platform team and the component owners didn't think about. So if those interfaces are defined, if everything's documented really well, and you're doing that testing, especially integration testing, that'll go a long way in proving the viability of those components, right? But I mean, so that's from a technical perspective, right? And that's easy to say from a technical perspective, but you come from an organizational perspective. So how would you solve that?
So we often see, so in a large organization, we often have a massive separation of responsibilities. So one of the rules that we face within financial services is that a developer can never directly release code to production. It has to be released to production by an authorized group, okay, with the appropriate level of responsibility. There's a key separation of responsibilities because it reduces risk. Now, particularly in, say, modern cloud-native platforms where you develop a single platform, what we find is that we end up with components of the platform that are actually relied on by different groups. So let's take GitOps, for example, and Git is a great part of that. Git typically resides on the left-hand side of a release pipeline. It's used for storing source code, but suddenly we end up with in a modern or in a financial institution, okay, it's controlling our configuration repo that we use for operations and for releases. So one of the key things that's really important is to think about the responsibility for the tool. So Git no longer resides on one side, okay, and rather it becomes a component that can be, again, a capability that can be used in different parts of the software release pipeline. And so the key thing is to avoid turf battles. I think it's probably the easiest way to put that. Yep.
Yeah, and I would like to add my thoughts as well on this. So I think what works really well is when you have that platform that is composable and you have the availability to really interconnect all these different components, but also looking into those personas at the end, because those personas are the one that they will add value to the platform and they will add value to the end users. So how you can bring all those capabilities in a way that doesn't disrupt their activities, that doesn't add a cognitive load. So one of the things I have seen working really well is the concept of self-service. So bringing, for example, an internal developer portal or internal developer platform into your organization can really helps really smooth and scale operations. And this is really an important aspect of composability as well. And with that, I want to ask you, Colin, what do you think? So we talk about kind of define composability. We talk what could be great examples of what could work, but what could go wrong from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is when a platform is advertised as composable, but under the hood it really isn't, right? Or you eventually find out it really isn't. So like one example, I was working on a dev team where we were going to use a platform team's logging service, right? Their log aggregation service, which that's something you have to solve for in a distributed system. So great, we went through the documentation, tried to onboard, and it didn't work. And we approached the team. They said, did you try the documentation? Yes, right? So we started working with them. We dig a little deeper, and they said, oh, well, you're missing our logging library. Like, what logging library? Right? And it turns out that there's a logging library that is embedded in a private repo that we have to use their source code manager in order to get access to, and that's injected into the CI pipeline, which we also couldn't use because it wasn't compliant with our needs, right? So they said, oh, you can use our logging service, but no, it turned out we had to use the full monolith in order to actually leverage their logging service, right? So it ended up being a giant waste of time for us, and we still had to solve for logging, right? And their perspective at the time was, well, we can't meet your compliance needs because that's too specific. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Simon, is like, is that true? Does compliance really conflict with business needs?
No, there isn't really a conflict there. One of the biggest problems that I observe is the interpretation of policy and of compliance requirements. Often what can happen within a large institution is that a particular group can decide to take on a responsibility for providing a service, a capability, like the logging service that you've just outlined. And they'll go and develop an implementation. But that implementation actually doesn't really necessarily meet what the regulation or the requirement might actually specify. And that really means that there is a place where, yes, we can provide an additional capability or API to meet the requirement that you're after without necessarily forcing a specific implementation. And that's really absolutely important. So challenge hearsay with, like Judge Judy, okay, within the organisation where you find it. Don't take everything on face value. There often isn't a conflict. So, any thoughts, Valentina, for you?
Yeah, many. So, let's see. I want to start with the conflict when composability maybe conflicts with best practices, right? So maybe imagine this scenario, you are in this organization and then you are asked to build a specific tool. You're thinking in bringing this tool as composable, but then you didn't include like the end users and the personas. You build it from the platform engineer perspective, right, in order to help bring maybe new workloads into your platform. But with this mindset, what happens is you really build a monolith, which really doesn't scale. It's really hard to include new technology. It's hard to adapt. The end user doesn't have, a really great experience. So when thinking in composability, I would say composability is not first, it's the end user and all the personas first, and then you need to see how composability aligns with your business needs and your organization needs. So with that in mind, this new tool could be really, if you don't include all those personas and think on a way that this composable tool will be really composable, but not a monolith, but be able to evolve, and include Helm charts or GitOps in the future, or AI in the future, how that will work, how will be able to work with different personas, as I mentioned, like AI engineer, data scientist, how self-service can work with all these personas. So what I have seen is when it's not seen really from that place, it really had really problems with adoption, and that is really impacting the business. So it's really hard for, it's really just not helping. It's creating more work and more overload and frustration. So that's not good. But with that, I want to talk about also what is next for composability and what you wish for. So who wants to take that one?
I'll start. So for me, from a platform composability perspective, I'm looking to WebAssembly to really, get into the most composable platform I can imagine, right? So if everything that the platform team is available through WASM modules, then I can just focus on writing the smallest amount of business logic possible, and the interfaces take care of the rest. That's my dream, right? I don't want to write a lot of code. I don't want to have to shift between a dev cluster implementation of a database versus a prod cluster. I don't want to have to think about the scale. I want platforms to just give me an interface. I align to that. I write a function call, and that's it. And so that's my dream for composability on a platform. You guys figure out what that interface does, right? All I have to write is the function call.
Right. What about you?
Well, actually, on the topic of WASM, I've always looked at this as providing an abstraction to allow me to go and execute artifacts on pretty much on a wider variety of infrastructure. But I mean, as I listen to Colin now, I think as a platform engineer, I need to have a talk to a developer and actually learn a little bit more about the needs that are there, and then work on engineering those. And then just one last thought. I think that the biggest challenge still I see with composable platforms is probably around cultivating the understanding of what that actually means. We've had a lot of work undertaken in platform engineering over the past number of years, which has been absolutely brilliant. But I think within the enterprise, we need to probably articulate it a little better. Yeah. And Valentina, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think what wish for or what's next, I think for composability is bringing all those components into that seamless way with best practices, with end user in mind, as we mentioned, and to avoid all those problems I could have in the future, but also to be ready to what's next. So for example, at Qflow, what we are working on as a community is to bring a better user experience. We are bringing new SDKs. We are also looking into ways of how to make deployment easier with Helm charts. So we are looking also into how our AI/ML platform and tooling will adapt into all the new agentic frameworks. So I think it's really just looking into the future and how we can serve better the community and the end users at the end, and each organization doing the same in terms of the user experience to remove those blockers. And with that, also I want to say the Qflow, we have at Qflow Summit, CFPs are open, so it's your chance to submit. And I don't know, any other final remarks? I think we are at the end.
Well, if we're going to do shout outs for events, so CFPs are open at the moment for Cloud Native University in Atlanta. So please get those in. Yeah, check it out. It's going to be great.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. We are open to questions as well. Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you.